They have been maturing their sales enablement practice. And in doing so, you're starting to actually see teams shift from even reporting through sales enablement teams reporting sales, to now it reporting directly into the C-suite, COO, CEO, et cetera, because it's such a strategic part of the business. It's a competitive and strategic asset.
Welcome to the Modern Marketing Engine podcast, hosted by Bernie Borges. This is the podcast for the modern marketer who wants to hear from their peers in the trenches and the occasional analyst or rockstar influencer sharing strategies and tactics about what's working in modern marketing. Be sure to listen to the end of each episode for Bernie's summary and takeaways so you can plan your next move in your own modern marketing journey.
This episode is brought to you by Gong.io, the #1 conversation intelligence platform for sales. Gong helps you achieve revenue success, skyrocket rep performance, and gain critical market intelligence. Get powerful visibility into your customer conversations with Gong. Head over to Gong.io to get started. And Gong is spelled G-O-N-G. Hey there! Welcome to episode 261 of the Modern Marketing Engine podcast. I'm Bernie Borges, CMO of Ingresso, and your host. Hey, thanks for listening. Hey, my guest on this episode is Jake Brawley, Vice President, Global Marketing at Highspot. Jake, welcome to the Modern Marketing Engine podcast.
Thanks, Bernie. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, Jake, we are here to talk about a hot topic, sales enablement. I can't get away from this topic, and I don't really want to because it is such a relevant topic. We're going to talk about why sales enablement is required for modern marketing. But before we dive in, Jake, why don't we begin with an introduction to your company, Highspot, and your role there?
Sure, yes, and sales enablement is very much a hot topic and one I'm very passionate about. So I love being able to work for part of the solution in this industry, and that is on the software side. So Highspot is really sales enablement software that helps automate a lot of the things you need to do to enable a customer-facing person in your company. And what that means at the end of the day is that you need to have content, external-facing content you use with customers, as well as training content, internal content, and you need to have guidance around that. So really, your customer-facing people know how best to use it at any given time with a customer, with a prospect. And that's really what our technology does. So I love being a part of this industry. I've been on the pain side of it for a long time too, and I'm really excited to talk about this topic today.
Fantastic. And Jake, your role there as global head of marketing, that's a big job for a fast-growing company. Tell us a little bit about that for our listener who's really in marketing, just like you.
Yeah, so I've been at Highspot over 2 years now, and really in that space of time, we've seen this market explode, and along with it, demand for solutions like Highspot. And so my team is really supporting all of our global strategy as it relates to where do we need to grow in this market, where's the best place to put our demand dollars, and all of the tactics that we need to deploy in order to capitalize on the market opportunity right now. And so that's really what my team does. And we're looking at a really healthy market right now and really excited about what the near future holds.
Fantastic. Well, great background. Thank you for that. Great context for the conversation. And I thought we would begin, Jake, with a basic definition of sales enablement. And I'm sure you've seen many different definitions, right, in your travels. So I thought it would make sense for us to begin there. Let's kind of lay some the premise for the conversation. Define sales enablement for us.
It's not an easy thing to do, but for me, when I hear sales enablement, this actually has a little bit of baggage because I remember doing this 15 years ago when I was working for Microsoft early in my career. And enablement at that time, it was just a requirement for a technology company that's delivering new products, new innovation. At that point, my goodness, every 3 years. And so as a seller, understanding how to sell those products, you really had to have a way of doing that was operationalized. And so enablement was really the thing that we used to do. You fast forward to today, and all of the hype that I've seen, even in the last 24 months around this topic of sales enablement, the term itself is really going through a redefinition. And with it, kind of a renaissance, if you will, about what it means to really enable a customer-facing person. And in its simplest terms, the way I would define it is equipping all of the people in your organization to have the most high-quality interactions with their prospects and their customers as possible. That's really what enablement is.
Okay, so equipping customer-facing people with the content, the tools, the insights that they need to engage effectively.
That's a great way to summarize it. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So what is it that's really occurred over the last 15 years? You know, you bring back some of the memory banks for me as well, Jake, in terms of new product information that would come out of marketing that would be very focused on product features, competitive differentiation, how we're going to go to market, presentation decks, that kind of thing. So why has it evolved?
There's three kind of reasons that I see all coalescing to make this a really important topic. The first is, you take the example I gave you at Microsoft, innovation on product lines every 3 to 5 years, and you look at the innovation cycles now in just about every industry. So this is no longer just a technology-only phenomenon. Every industry has technology on board its products, and there's a need to keep up with all of the innovation and all of the new things that a company is introducing because the amount of change is happening so quickly. That's one. The second thing is that buyer behavior has also changed. Not only do we have new and different buyers, we're not just selling to IT anymore, but the buyers have more information. They're coming with a lot of info that they've already gotten exposure to well before talking to a sales rep or somebody from your company. And that means the expectations of those interactions have gone way up. You can't just know what they know. You've got to actually be able to add incremental value beyond that. And then the third thing is that I think the technology itself has evolved to allow us to do some of these things in a more automated way and solve it with technology that we couldn't do 10, 15, even 5 years ago with artificial intelligence, machine learning, and new technologies that make it truly easy to bring that guidance and the content all at the point of action that's intuitive for that person who's having an interaction. So I think those are really the three things that have changed or driving this trend. Okay,
so I like that, kind of the trifecta, those three things coming together. But what's been happening at what I'll call the mindset level, Jake? What I mean is the people that you're selling Highspot to, your customers, what evolution have they been going through? I'm using the phrase mindset. Like, how have they changed to really embrace the fact that sales enablement really is a thing that they need to prioritize and they need to invest in a technology like Highspot?
Cast back 2 to 3 years ago, a big swath of the market really was just familiarizing themselves with sales enablement. They had probably been doing it in some form or another, whether it looked like sales training or a content share that was just designed for their sellers. You know, they were familiar with the term only in so far as they were doing it in different ways, and they just didn't know to call it sales enablement. Fast forward 12 months from that time, and then what you started to see is more dedicated focus on doing those things within a company. And that didn't always mean that you had a dedicated person or team with a sales enablement title, but it did mean that it was part of somebody's job. And usually before that's a dedicated role, it falls with somebody in marketing and often product marketing to do the thing that we're calling sales enablement. And so I think the mindset that shifted, and this really needs now to be a dedicated named function. It is a strategic part of the organization and not just a tactical function that's a shared service, is because we're now able to also quantify that it's actually having positive business impact on things that organizations care to have an impact on, like quota attainment, conversion, velocity, win rates, you name it, as it relates to revenue performance. Sales enablement is at the core, foundational rather, to seeing those kind of returns. And we've now been able to correlate that. And so I think that's bringing along more organizations to say, yeah, I know what it is. Now I need to dedicate investment and focus there because there's been a clear quantified need that's been shown.
Now, Jake, you said something I want to come back to. You used the term shared service. Let's begin with what you mean by that, because I think I know what you mean, but I don't want to go down that path if maybe I'm not on the same page. So what do you mean by shared service?
The way I describe that is really order taking as a shared service. Your head of sales is coming and saying, we need to educate our sellers on how to better tell our differentiation because we are losing too many deals to our competitors. And then enablement becomes the fulfillment center for that. And that's what I meant by shared services. It also works in the other direction where marketing is saying, well, we've got a new product line that we're rolling out. We've got new materials and education. Here, enablement, go and get this to your sellers and to the field. And so what I mean is sales enablement as a strategic function has now evolved beyond that order taking as a shared service. And they're really integral to driving the strategy in conjunction with sales and marketing. And that's a huge shift that we've seen happen really over the last, I'll again say 12 to 24 months, because now we have organizations that have been doing this for 2+ years. They have been maturing their sales enablement practice. And in doing so, you're starting to actually see teams shift from even reporting through sales enablement teams reporting sales, to now it reporting directly into the C-suite, COO, CEO, et cetera, because it's such a strategic part of the business. It's a competitive and strategic asset.
Interesting. That's a really interesting trend. So what about the proverbial relationship between marketing and sales, specifically sales enablement? What are you seeing there?
The old way to think about this is enablement was really the bridge between the two, and enablement drives alignment between sales and marketing. But I think more of the reality is sales and marketing leaders aren't trying to align to one another. They're trying to actually align to their customers and their prospects. And it's really, you've seen buyers shift from, we used to talk about buyer's journey. Well, buyers today don't want to be on a journey. They want prescribed steps to evaluate and determine if your solution is a good fit for them. And so enablement has really become an equal peer partner of both marketing and sales. And I think where you have really high-powered, effective go-to-market teams that are driving positive revenue performance, those three teams are actually working in close concert with one another. And I'll describe that in a little bit more why, but I think enablement is no longer the bridge. They're actually a part of the triad, as you described, of the three core pieces of a go-to-market that really power revenue growth.
Okay. That's a really interesting way to describe it and to explain it, especially in the context of the way that I framed up the question, Jake. So that kind of leads me to, is sales enablement a department? Is it a shared service, as you said? Is it a discipline? Does it depend on the organization? Is it all the above?
I think it's a little bit of all of the above. It is a named function now. And so there is that. But I think sales enablement is also a philosophy of how you're looking at your go-to-market. At the core is an effective go-to-market really takes into account a great customer experience with great interactions with customers and with prospects. And enablement is the way that you do that. And so I do think, to your question, there's a little bit of an yes and what enablement is becoming is not just a team and a function, it's certainly that, but it's really a philosophy similar to marketing automation, Salesforce automation, some of the core capabilities that an organization needs to have, in addition to a team that's dedicated and focused on delivering that. But that's where enablement has been elevated to, is that core capability for strategic growth and performance.
So what I'm hearing you say, Jake, is that it's both requisite, it's also strategic, and it is a function that coexists alongside marketing, alongside sales, even alongside the C-suite because of its strategic impact on the business.
Yeah, that's a great way to articulate it.
I'll be back in a moment with the rest of my conversation with Jake Brawley. Opinions in sales are your worst enemy. Here's why. Your business has million-dollar decisions that if you could answer with facts, you'd have an unfair advantage. Now, some of those questions are, What really separates your best reps from the rest? Why does half of your pipeline slip? And what's the best message to go to market with? Now, if your answers were facts instead of opinions, you'd win the unfair share of your market. It turns out the truth is buried right underneath your nose. It's found in the customer conversations that your team has each and every day. Introducing Gong.io. Gain powerful visibility into your customer conversations. With Gong, you'll win more deals, skyrocket rep success, and gain critical market intelligence that will help you achieve revenue success and win the lion's share of the wealth. Go to gong.io/demo to get started today. I want to ask this question partly because we jotted it down as a question, but we've kind of touched on it, but I think it's worth asking just to expand a little bit, and that's the stakeholders who benefit most from sales enablement. You want to elaborate on that, Jake?
Yeah, I guess so the way I'll think about stakeholders is there's kind of three sets of stakeholders. One is your executive team. Anybody that's gold on and focused on driving revenue performance, they're certainly a stakeholder in understanding how enablement can drive higher win rates, higher conversion, higher velocity, all the things that impact the bottom line and top line. I think the other stakeholder, if you think about it from a customer standpoint, and what I mean by customers, internal customer, in this case, is anybody in an organization that interacts with a customer or a prospect. So anybody who might be quota carrying or have a customer-facing role, they're absolutely stakeholders in having good enablement because it allows them to do their jobs effectively. And then, as I mentioned before, the driving force behind this has to be one of the most important stakeholders, and that is your buyers. And whether your buyers are your customers, their prospects, in most cases both, whether those are partners, they, of course, are a stakeholder because they want and need to be able to both evaluate you efficiently, understand how you're different from other solutions, and they want to achieve value once they've decided that they want to procure your product or your service. And so they're absolutely a stakeholder in what we call sales enablement because the benefits accrue and impact them directly.
So the last one is really a fascinating one because it's probably not as intuitive as the first two, the executive team and all customer-facing people, because it's the customer. And, you said earlier, Jake, that the customer comes to the party with a lot more information than in years past. So what I think I hear you say is that doing a better job of engaging the customer is good for business in general, and sales enablement is a contributor to that. Is that another way to say that?
It's another way to say it. And by extension of an internal customer, to be effective there, it has to be driven from the external customer. And so if you're going to have higher quality conversations, you need to have higher quality content. You need to have reps that are proficient in their trade. You need to have experts across the board. And so I really see it as an extension of that internal audience that I described. It's an important extension of that audience.
Okay, fantastic. So Jake, what words of wisdom do you want to share with the listener who maybe is in the early stages of a sales enablement function or program within their company, or maybe they're not there yet? Where should they start and how can they really, get going?
Yeah, one of the challenges and also joys of my job is just how hot this topic of sales enablement has become. It's great, obviously, as a business driver for us, but what it's created is a lot of noise in the person who's not initiated and trying to understand what does a sales enablement technology stack look like. And so as a technology provider, when it's time to start looking at technologies, I'll say, there's a lot of good information, good sources out there, but the best source of information are always going to be customers and other organizations that have been using different technologies. So I would actually encourage you not to listen to us vendors, but to listen to all of the people out there that are currently using and have used other solutions and tools in the past. And there's great third-party review boards that do a good job of that and consolidating that customer feedback today. If you're not yet at the technology stage and trying to figure out how to automate this, but you're still trying to think about what is sales enablement to my organization? What does it mean? There's also great resources, and we've invested quite a bit in helping provide some transparency into what's the business case and how are people achieving success and to what extent. And we've published a lot of content that helps you with that, but there's other great resources out there, salesenablement.pro, Sales Enablement Society, and other organizations that are focused on revealing what's happening in this market. And so that would be a great kind of starting point for those of you that are just getting initiated.
And certainly I want to invite you to mention the fact that you guys have a pretty awesome guide yourselves. So feel free to mention that because it's definitely worth mentioning.
Yeah. So, like any emerging category and selling solutions into it, it's incumbent upon us that we do a good job educating our prospective buyers, and we're doing it early in the cycle. So we have invested in a definitive guide of sales enablement, and you can find that on our website. We've also just published the State of Sales Enablement 2019 report, which will help you with kind of what's happening and getting a pulse on the market. And outside of the things that we publish, like I said, there's also great reports now that the analyst community are focusing more in this space, and there's a lot better content and research that they're introducing as well. So you really do have a good opportunity to do some self-education in this space right now.
Terrific. Well, Jake, we're at a point in this episode where I'm going to do a recap, kind of hit the treetops on what we discussed. And then I'm going to ask you to elaborate, maybe fill in any holes or anything that maybe I left out. And then we'll ask you for your digital contact information, and we'll bring it to a wrap. So we began our conversation with an introduction to your company, Highspot. You're really focused on providing sales enablement software that helps automate the value of sales enablement to enable customer-facing people to engage more effectively. It really is about providing content to sales teams, both external customer-facing and also internal content, along with guidance. And your role in the company is you head up global marketing and really drive your team to deploy all the strategies and tactics to capture all the available market share that's out there. And right now, there's a lot to be had because sales enablement is a hot topic. We talked about what is sales enablement. You said that, 15 years ago, it was really kind of product information focused. And if you fast forward to today, it's really been redefined. And it really is about enabling customer-facing people to equip them to engage with customers more effectively. And we talked about, why it's becoming so popular, why it's evolved to where it is today. And you said it's really three factors. Every industry has technology, and the amount of it has changed so quickly that it really kind of has forced the issue on the sales and marketing function. Also, the buyer behavior has changed, and the buyer comes to the sales conversation with so much information and they expect more from a salesperson. So they have to be enabled to be more effective in that customer engagement, that prospect and customer engagement. And then, of course, the technology has kept pace and has evolved to really make it truly easy for, I say easy in air quotes, to implement sales enablement practices. We talked a little bit about the mindset of sales enablement. It used to be very sales training focused, and now it's a dedicated focus within a company. It's either a discipline or part of someone's job. It's really become a strategic part of the organization. You said that it's a shared service, Jake, that it's really something that's having a very positive impact on the organization. It's driving important metrics like sales quota attainment, speeding up deal velocity, and of course, helping improve win rates. Back to the comment of shared service. I asked you to elaborate on that. You said that, there's people that really need help, like sales. They need to equip their salespeople, so they come to a sales enablement function, but it's no longer an order-taking function. It's really now a strategic function, and you mentioned that in many cases it even reports into the C-suite. And we talked about the relationship between marketing and sales enablement, and you said that sales and marketing really want to align to the customer's journey, so sales enablement now is really an equal peer partner with both sales and marketing, and it's really a philosophy of how you go to market, kind of like marketing automation. All companies really are doing marketing automation as a way of being efficient in how they go to market, and likewise, sales enablement is part of that philosophy. We talked about the stakeholders. The executive team is focused on driving revenue performance. The internal customer, which is anybody that interacts with customers so that they can be more effective. Obviously, the sales team is number one on the list, but anybody who's customer facing. And then also the customer. They need to be able to evaluate vendors efficiently. They want to achieve value from the companies that they choose to engage with and do business with. So you really need to be able to create experts across the entire organization in those customer engagement practices. And then we talked about how do you get started with sales enablement if you're just getting started. I love what you said. You said don't listen to the vendors. Listen first to the companies who've been doing sales enablement. However, there's also many other resources in the marketplace. There's the analyst community. There's organizations like SalesEnablement.pro, the Sales Enablement Society. And then you yourself at Highspot, you publish the annual State of Sales Enablement Report. You've got the 2019 report, and you've got an awesome guide called the Definitive Guide to Sales Enablement. So, Jake, I'll end my summary there. Is there anything that you would like to add?
The only thing I'll add is we like to think a lot in marketing about how do we convince prospective buyers to do something and to do something now? And so I'll leave you with my spark of urgency for taking a look at this space. If you're in marketing, if you're not in marketing, even more important maybe that you're looking at this, or equally important. But think about the competitive win rate. And as I said before, you'll find a lot of interesting information that says where organizations are doing this today and where they're doing it well. They're seeing incredible results in terms of competitive win rate. And think about what you look like if you're not on that side. So I'll leave you with that one. Hopefully that's a little bit to get you urgent about and interested and excited about looking into this space, but I feel it's part of my job to do that for you.
I think that was pretty inspirational, Jake. Thank you for leaving us with that. Where would you like to send my listener to connect with you online and just learn more about what you've got going on at Highspot?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter, Jake Brawley, Jakebrally. You can find me on LinkedIn, or you can feel free to email me, jake.brawley@highspot.
Fantastic. Well, Jake, thank you so much for joining me here today on this episode of the Modern Marketing Engine podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Hey, before you go, does it feel like everything is a priority and everyone's asking for your time and attention? Yeah. Well, here's a free video training that's going to help you manage your time, double your income, and skyrocket your team's success. It's called the Sales Management Matrix. You'll learn exactly how to spend your time for the highest revenue return possible. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, hey, I'm a marketer, not a sales manager. It doesn't matter. Just go to gong.io/matrix and get the free 19-minute video training. You're going to love it. Again, it's gong.io/matrix.
This wraps up another inspiring episode of the Modern Marketing Engine podcast. If you want to share this podcast with a friend, let them know that we're available on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Podcasts. And we love 5-star reviews. If you are not subscribed yet, please hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast player so you don't miss an episode. You can read the show notes for each episode at vengresso.com. While you're there, sign up to receive the show notes delivered to your inbox through our weekly alerts. And be sure to also check out our Selling with Social podcast hosted by Vengresso CEO Mario Martinez Jr. Again, you'll find our show notes at vengresso.com. And that's one S in Vengresso. Tune in again next week when Bernie Borges brings you another inspiring interview to help you thrive on your modern marketing journey.